Well, welcome everybody to the Q&A with the writer and director Ying Wang, the writer and director of The World is Bright, the film that you have just completed watching. So I guess what we're going to do here tonight is we'll have a conversation and, um, I'm willing to, we're gonna chat a bit about the film and a bit about some of your ideas. And what we'll do is also open up the Q&A to anybody else that might have, a burning question to ask you after viewing The World is Bright. So I'll just start things off by getting, we'll open it. I'll ask you some questions about the film and we'll get the ball rolling that way. How does that sound?
Sure, yeah. Just first of all, thank you so much for having us at the Silver Wave Festival. It's our first time to show our film at this festival, and also it's actually the premiere of of the festival in Atlantic region. So
Mm,
so we are very honored and very happy. And thanks, Paul. Yeah, great to meet you on the other side.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, right. So I guess I should also introduce myself. I am Paul DeDecker, and I am a professor of linguistics slash filmmaker. And so I'm coming at these questions and the Q&A tonight with a background in language and communication. And so my interests are, and probably some of my questions would be directly building off of that background in understanding the role of language in culture, language perception, language and thought, and how that might be an important part of filmmaking. So we'll go ahead and start with that. So some of the major themes, as I was watching the World is Bright, it struck me is that we have a number of discourses, a number of ways of conceiving and thinking about the world that are present in the film, and so the one of the larger, most obvious ones is the discourse around mental illness and mental health. And so there's a number of ways that mental illness and mental health is presented. Some of them are sometimes perhaps at odds with each other. We have the perception of mental health as a mental illness as being something that shouldn't be talked about, and that seemed to be one of a strong discourse within the film. So I was wondering if you uh, would like to comment on the discourse behind mental illness as it relates to The World is Bright.
Okay. Um, I think the discourse starts from a point of view as an immigrant,
Mm,
because first of all, the discussion about mental illness, if you watch on a lot of mainstream media, it's it's English language centered, and
mm,
also it's a I would say the population is also like the Euro, the democratic centered. However, as we all know, Canada is a is made up a lot of new immigrants, right? Yeah, and so for me, I think my connection with discourse is firstly it's very personal, because my family, my parents and my sister immigrated to the United States in the early 1990s, and after the immigration, my sister developed severe eating disorders.
mm,
So so her illness and the struggle with a severe mental illness in this new land, that was a big shock for the whole family and also to me. So I came to Canada first as an international student and then become a London immigrant. As you can see, you can tell from my conversation is I came after I passed the prime time to learn language. So for the normal immigrants like me, the first barrier, first thing we have to overcome, and the thing we almost have to struggle with the whole life is this language barrier and then the culture barrier.
Mm.
And with that as a context, so then you know that comes the mental illness problem, all that, yeah. So indeed mental illness is one big topic, but this discourse, I think, in this film is from a new immigrant's point of view. Yeah.
Right. And so there's a discourse that was the second major discourse that was identified, dealing with immigration, how we talk about um, the others, people who come from away, let's say, come from other countries and move to Canada. Um, there's a particular discourse, or a number of discourses, of the way we speak about foreign migrants to Canada, and so that's another issue that seems to have its own way of that we talk about in order to understand the idea of immigration. And so what struck me was interesting was that these, where we have two clear discourses, there seems to be a lack of a discourse when it comes to the overlap of those two areas, so immigration and mental illness. Um, we may understand, we're starting to understand and being able to talk about mental illness more so in the past, number of years. Thanks a lot to social media. Let's say there's been a lot of social media interest that drives discussion and conversations about mental illness. And just generally, the discourse around immigration is something we hear about regularly within the news. That's a very common source of where we pick up and hear different language about immigration. But like I said, the two together seems to be a blank space, or a blank a category missing from the way we understand our world. Is there anything that you think is should be given to that space, that blank space? What should we be talking about when it comes to talking about mental health and immigration?
uh, Easy answer is definitely yes. But maybe, yeah, I will just try to elaborate more.
Sure.
The process actually to understand this connection. So as I said at the beginning, is I encountered this connection, mental illness, and as an immigrant, first through my sister, so that and then I got to know. So because of my sister's illness, so that actually gave me the inspiration to finish my first film called Sisters. So that's basically completely based on my sister's struggle with eating disorders. So after finish that film, the issue of mental illness definitely already became a subject very close to my heart. So I began to volunteer in the community, particularly in the organizations that are dealing with immigrants. Then I realized that my sister's struggle is not just one story, so it's a tip of iceberg.
Mm.
So that was in 2005. I finished my first film, and then in 2007, I got to know the parents. That's when they first came to Canada. What triggered me, definitely first of all, was still the mystery around the case. Secondly, is Shiming's mental problem, because though it make me realize, there's another young man who had a similar background as me, come from Beijing and an international student, and then become PR, and then got mental illness. So that deeply triggered me. So that's why I started to follow the story, and then to follow for so many years. But actually, it was until about 2010, I read a book by SFU professor, Alexandra. The book is called "The Globalization of Addiction." So the book really provide a much wider picture of mental problem, and it's particularly talk about the culture dislocation and how that affect people's mental illness, and it traced back to the history, like the mental illness problem in the First Nation, and also in many other countries, like this big history background. So that's really really led me to really look at the issue from this global migration, and then the family story, almost like a case study, almost like to perfectly illustrate what the theory, because the father came from a small village in Sichuan in China, and migrant to Beijing, and then settled there, and then had their only son Shiming, and then send the son back to the Western country. So that's this trajectory of the family. It's just a represent of millions like them, to travel all of the world.
Right.
So that, and then along so many years, I also read a lot of research. So actually, there's already a lot of research done in this field. For example, we went to the McGill, the transcultural psychiatry. They particularly focus on the culture, from the culture perspective, to understand psychiatry and to understand the mental illness, and then in order to really provide, they call it culturally competent or culturally relevant treatment to people suffering from the mental illness. So, and also in 2017, there's a 10-year research done by Toronto. It's called the Center. Sorry, I write it down. Toronto Center for Addiction and Mental Illness. That's a 10-year research. They found the chemical change in brain and how the stress, particularly stress caused by migration, that can trigger the change of the brain, and then severely increase the risk of mental illness, and particularly psychosis, which is a Shiming had. Yeah. So it's all this research already actually been there, and actually supported my first assumption, and then supported what we are searching. So I know a lot of information. Yeah. So just based on this research, and I think the film is based on this research, and also is a case study of the to really show a proof of all this research.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned that you talked to the transcultural psychology researchers at McGill University. I'm sure at throughout the making of this film, you've talked to a lot of different groups of people, different representing different opinions and uh, understandings of this case. Um, is there any group? I guess you also mentioned at the end of the film that the border agent
Yes, yes.
and the parole officer didn't want to be involved in in interviews for the film. So obviously their stories are left out of the film. Are there other groups that you would like to have brought into the film, but or as part of the narrative, but feel that you couldn't for some reason? Are there other takes and other angles of of ideas that could be expressed that you would, if you could do a director's cut, a 6-hour director's cut of the film, you might add their stories into it? Who are those people, and what would they say?
Um, yeah, there are a lot. Yeah, so maybe so first, indeed, yeah. So in addition to following the parents' journey, we did a reach out interview with people working in mental illness and working in immigrant settlement, and also working in the immigration law. So we also
Mm,
interviewed a lot of immigration lawyer. So we collected uh, so we interviewed over 20 people across the country and
mm,
collect a lot of information. So that's part that we, at the end, we couldn't include in the film.
mhm,
Uh, because I think after watching the film, we would see the parents' journey is very strong, like the emotion, the story, the family story arc is already very strong.
mhm,
So we tried putting a lot of interviews to try to give more like a commentary of what is happening, or try to give a or maybe I would say like information knowledge. But
yeah,
then the whole film didn't look right. Like all this expert interview becomes
mhm,
like a god. Okay, I tell you what it's about. So
mhm,
it's a from the filmmaking point of view, it's not right. Yeah.
right. You had to make
So
some important cuts then.
yeah, so
Mm,
at the end we had to take all this interview out. Uh, so that's why actually it took us 2 years to put the film together. So we
mm,
put the interview in, took them out. So
mhm,
that's one big challenge. And then second part is indeed we really want to reach out to the like the CBSA, the Canadian Border Service, to all these officials who were directly involved in the case. We actually, I had several meetings with the Shimin's probation officer, because
mm,
she was the one who knew what happened after Shimin left the jail, and
mm,
before he died, actually, because Shimin went to try to get help from her a couple of times. But she almost agreed.
mm,
She agreed to be interviewed, but then she said her boss doesn't allow, because of there's a new privacy policy that she couldn't do it. And of
mhm,
course, we try to reach out to the officer directly involved in case, and he rejected us a couple of times.
mm, okay.
And also we try to reach out for people like a policymaker, to try to address some problems we revealed in the immigration system. We revealed in the film,
Mm,
but we couldn't get any permission. So for
right.
that part is that's yeah, I feel if we could have achieved to that angle, to bring that perspective, so I feel the film maybe will be, I cannot say stronger, but that was our original approach.
Mhm,
But I think back to then back to the film is through all these interviews. particularly interviews with experts about mental illness, what we always heard is one word: is a complexity. It's how complete mental illness is, and it's so hard to generalize, all these symptoms, or to just give one term to say what it is about.
Right.
It's almost impossible. And also because the cultural element to understand mental illness, and for people from different cultural background, because that has been extremely missing in the mainstream media and even in the mainstream mental health study. So that we decide that we really stick to the family story, because the family story itself already have those complexity. It has so many layers that actually all these layers and elements all contribute to this tragedy, to this family tragedy. None of them is not necessary. So they're all important. So that's why we decide, okay, we just tell this story, family story, with all these layers, and probably people can, they can get whatever they can get. Yeah.
Right. No, that's a good point. I mean, there's many stories to follow, but the family story is a very strong one, and it's you I think you told it very well.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at we have a question here from a participant in the who's watching, and this deals with the family and following the family around. They asked, did you ever feel that you were getting too close to the parents and their story, and were having a hard time making the film because of the emotional toll it was taking on you personally?
Mm.
Big question.
Actually, I would say it's very close. I think it's not emotional toll. I think after finishing my film with my first film on my sisters, uh, uh, because that was even more emotionally strong, because I was living with her. I witnessed her struggle every day, every minute. So after coming out of that, so I think my, like, emotionally, mentally, I'm okay dealing with that. But I think as a filmmaker, what's is challenging is the parents, how you deal with your subject's trust, because actually it's they trust you, and they almost like they naked their soul in front of you. They expose their most vulnerability in front of you, and then as you, because you behind, you actually you have the power to tell their story. So how, as a filmmaker, how you not betray that trust, and how you can tell the story that you bring out the complexity, you still show the vulnerability, but at the same time, you also preserve their dignity. And I think for me, that actually, that is that's a thing I really took it very seriously during the editing, because in the real time, is a lot of that time they were more emotional than you saw on film. There's a lot of very, very emotional, like, moments, like, yeah. So I constantly, I have to evaluate whether that's too much, whether, because to preserve their dignity, for me, I feel it's very, very important.
Right. Yeah, no, that's
Mm.
I think you did a very good job in striking that balance between showing them as vulnerable, you know, humans with complicated lives, flaws, imperfections in some way, but also giving them the, their showing their story as them grieving. That must have been a very difficult thing to strike a balance, but
Yeah,
looks like
because
you did a good
actually,
job.
yeah, because another way is made them continue following them is I witnessed their change during the
Mm,
10 years. Uh, their their attitude towards the case changed, and their understanding of Shimin changed. Their understanding of mental illness changed. And
mm,
most actually touched me is their understanding of about themselves changed. Because
right.
later on, you could see like they have a lot of self-reflection, like the way they brought Shimin, and they have a lot of self criticism, like,
Yep.
and also the self realization that actually, oh, what's most important in life, like, they start to really have all these big questions. So
Hmm.
that really touched me. Yeah.
Hmm. Right. Well, and I also want to just open up the floor as well to other questions. If anybody else has any other burning questions to ask, or if you want to find out more about the filmmaking process or get involved in this discussion, just there should be, I guess, there's a chat field that you can type your questions into. And we have another one. I was going to go to another question, but we'll go to this one here. Another question for you, Ying. Congratulations about winning Best Documentary Feature. How do you feel about that?
Oh, surprise, because I didn't know that until just right before the Zoom, before this talk. Yeah,
Oh,
so yeah, it's a big surprise, but it's great honor, definitely great honor. Yeah, yeah,
mm-hmm,
and particularly, I think the honor is a this is a story about new immigrants. So I think this award is yeah, how can I say, it's an honor for our
mm,
story, and I think it's honor for also an honor for the parents for their persistence. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Oh, and we have another question for you. Do you have a distributor? And if you do, can you tell us about that and how that came about for you?
Oh, distributor of the film.
For the film, yeah, yeah.
Uh, we actually now we only have a distributor for the educational market of the
Mm,
film in Canada and in the States. So it is a moving image distribution. So they
mm,
are in charge of the educational distribution. But we haven't got a distributor for other like a commercial distribution, because we are actually facing one barrier with a widely distributed film. It's
mm,
the ending song creep. Uh, so the creep is the Chinese cover, the first Mandarin cover of the song. But currently, we only got a festival screening right. So we haven't been able to raise enough money to pay for the universal right. So
mm.
without that right, yeah, we cannot really commercially distribute the film.
I see. Okay. And can you distribute it? I guess you already answered that question. You can distribute it in schools and for educational programs
Yeah,
without paying the extra money for the song.
yeah, I think like there's a certain requirement for like the small
Hmm.
scale like in class for that kind of screening. Yeah, well, fine. Yeah,
Okay.
but if
Yeah.
like widely in theater online, that kind of
Mhm.
distribution, VOD kind of, we're not
Right.
ready yet. So we're now like in the process to try to get the universal right.
Okay, great. That could be a Kickstarter project for you, or a crowd-funded project, because this is a great film, and it would be great if it could be widely distributed across the country, across North America, across the world. Why not? It could go
Yeah,
back all the way around the world.
yeah, hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Ying, how did you feel when you won your award at Hot Docs?
uh, I think maybe how does it feel? I'm very happy, and also I said, I also proud. Yeah, I'm happy and proud. I think for the reason is as I mentioned, is a really, we see so many new immigrants, like contemporary immigrants and migrants. It's happening everywhere, and particularly in Canada, right? But if you uh, uh, still look at the Canadian screen, like the stories about the experience of contemporary migrant, and I strongly feel is still lacking.
Mm,
And so this film that that tell the story of the contemporary migrant, and also it address the mental illness, our immigration legal system. It's so relevant, I think, for what we are living right now in this time.
mm.
So winning this award, and with this story, and I feel happy, and I feel proud, and I feel there should be more films. Yeah, like yeah.
Right, right. Very good. And so you've been showing the film at festivals, I guess, for over a year. Is that correct?
Yeah, since almost over a year, since
Or
last
maybe
September. Yeah.
okay, right. So 2019, September 2019. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
had a premiere at the Vancouver International Film Festival at
Right.
the end of September. Yeah, last year.
Okay. And what have the have the questions and answers been like over the course of that year? Um, have you been able to talk to groups of audience members to get their perspective, their feedback on the film?
Yes, yes, a lot. Yeah. So actually, in addition to festival screening, we already have a lot of community screenings. So we work with organizations to put
Mm,
on the screening, and then have the conversation about mental illness.
hmm.
And mm, and actually, the what I feel very excited, or I feel rewarding, is although this film is about this one particular Chinese family story, but the response, the feedback from the audience, it's actually across culture. Like even I remember clearly, is after one festival screening, there's a lady, and she's Caucasian, and she rushed out of the theater, and like with a tear in the eyes. And then so I went to talk to her and said, oh, so how do you like the film? And she
Mm,
said, um, mm, uh, she has a two children working in Asia right now, and one is in Japan, and one is in China. And the son who was in Japan actually had been having a lot of issues, depression, all that. And she, before watching the film, she didn't understand, like, what's the problem with you, you are in Asia. And but after watching the film, and she felt she now really understand what
mm,
his son was going through. And she said she couldn't imagine if, like what happened to Shimin happened to the son. And
Right.
she just feel she couldn't even imagine how she would cope with that. So because now the migration is not from east to west, right, or from the developing country to the developed. So we are
Mm-hmm.
all moving around, like
Mm-hmm.
even within one country we moved from one city to another, right? And this stress, this isolation, and a lot of issues we are facing at the same time. So this cross culture, like the audience, big audience, and I think that for me was I didn't expect that. So for me that I feel extremely rewarding, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel, oh, all this hard work is all worth it, because of the film can really talk to so many people. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing, eh? Yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
And another thing is people's realize the culture subtlety in people's understanding of mental illness. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like a stigma. So stigma of mental illness existing actually in all the cultures. As you said, we all tend to now to talk about it. We all have this kind of shame. But uh, but what's the difference is the cause of that stigma. That's different in
Yeah.
different cultures. For example, in Asian cultures, the family tend to play a big role in people's mental problem, because the expectation, from the parents to the child, even among the parents, right? Like a intergeneration, all this dynamic that
Mm-hmm.
play a big part. And also, the communication, like in the film, people tend not to tell the truth. All these white lies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is that right or wrong? It's hard to say right or wrong. It's just how people are talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so as that part is people also feel okay. That provide some more understanding of the issue, and in culture context.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that helps though, because it helps people relate to the film because you've provided so much family dynamic in the film. I imagine most people can pick up on something and say, "Oh, that's similar to my family experience," or that part about you know having the elderly grandmother living in a community distance from the rest of the family,
Mhm.
that might be relatable to somebody else. And so what this does is it gives an opportunity for this particular case, mental illness, to be considered relative to their own family lives. It's like, okay, what would we have done if we were in that situation, or a family member, developed a mental health issue. So, because you've provided so much family background and family information, it allows people to jump in and put themselves in that situation too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as one expert, after watching the film, he made a comments. He said, uh, in the Eurocentric, like treatment about mental illness. So when we tend to treat the patient as individual,
Mm,
so we tend to ignore, or play down the role the family play, and so this film actually showed how important the family, is organic part of the people's mental illness. Like even
right.
in treatment, uh, and he feel you have to understand that part, and you have to include the family in the whole treatment, even prevention. Like you include in this whole discourse about mental illness.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. So it goes beyond the individual, the one that's, you know, whose brain, whose mind is affected. It expands into all relationships that, you know, interact with this individual too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have another question for you from a participant.
Mm.
It says, "Do you have any new projects in the works?"
Oh, yes. Yeah. I'm developing a new documentary right now. It's has something to do with COVID. Yeah. And actually it's about the Chinese whistleblower, Dr. Li Mingliang.
Oh,
So that's
okay.
a documentary I'm developing. And also, I'm also writing a script of a fiction film.
Hmm.
It's also, you know, mental illness and immigration is part of the story. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm working on these two projects at the same time, but there's still a lot of works left for this film, and because we are building a website, and we hope the website can also be a resource platform for people for the culture. How to say the how to say, you know, the resource for people whose English is not their first language, so they can access of a, you know, multilingual resource on mental illness. So we're building that website. And also, as I told you, because we still have the interview, you know, we have this valuable interview with all these experts. So yeah, so we were going to edit that and to share with the public. So website and finish the video editing of all these interviews. That's two works we're also working on.
Yeah, that sounds like a very busy project to get involved in, and it's great that you are planning for other opportunities and other options beyond the final, but beyond the film. You're planning to go into the schools and have an educational resource, a website, and so all of those are, I think, great projects to look forward to.
Yeah, and we have also kick out of our impact campaign screening. So we plan next year we'll show the film in the community across the country, yeah, to
Hmm.
have conversations.
Great. Well, I think we're just about out of time. So I think we'll wrap up here. And I would like to thank you for offering this film and presenting this wonderful film. It was a tough film to follow or to watch at times. It was a heavy film, but I think ultimately it was a very important story that you told very well. And so we thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I'll just give you the last word. Or is anything you'd like to say before we end here?
Yeah, so if you like the film, tell your friends, tell people, yeah, and follow us on our social media because we'll have more screenings and conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.